This is Harley Howard, and welcome to the What Saith the Scriptures radio program. Come join us with your Bibles open as we study through the Epistle of Paul to Titus.
Titus 2. I just want to bring to your attention a few interesting historical facts. The total area of Iraq is 437,072 square kilometers. And that makes it slightly more than twice the size of Idaho. The terrain is mostly broad plains, reedy marshes along the Iranian border in the south, with large flooded areas, and mountains along the borders with Iran and Turkey. Some of the natural hazards that are in Iraq are dust storms, sandstorms, and also floods. The population, give or take a few after each combat, this is all as of July of this year, the population of Iraq is 25,374,691 individuals. And I'm sure you are saying to yourselves, what does any of this have to do with Titus chapter 2, 1 or 3? What does any of this have to do with our study? Well, I'll get back to that at the end. We were looking at the qualifications of what constitutes a sound and a healthy church. We already examined the fact that one of the qualifications of the bishop is the ability to know and to preach sound doctrine with the intent to encourage and to convict. Titus was to preach and to teach what one called practical doctrine. In other words, possessing sound doctrine is never a matter of simply possessing the knowledge of doctrine alone, but any saint or church that is truly in possession of sound doctrine is living the doctrine. Just as the bishop was to be in possession of sound doctrine, seen in his or in their qualifications, not just for the ability to teach it, but seen in the behavior of his or their lives, so the church is also to be established by living sound doctrine. As I said, it would be fair to conclude that a man is not qualified to be a bishop without sound doctrine, and a church body is not a true functioning qualified church body if it does not possess it either. You are qualified to be a church that is right with God and His plan if you are living sound doctrine. We also said that the application of this sound doctrine, or the absence thereof, will be revealed in the lives of every single person within the church. No question about that. And that there are no exemptions listed that are in the church body. If you are a living and a breathing person, and I'm assuming that everybody who is listening is a living and breathing person, and if you profess to be a saint, then no one escapes this chapter of practical sound doctrine, practical applied sound doctrine. The only thing that we need to be asking and answering for ourselves are these three questions, which I posed to you last time. Do I know what sound doctrine is? Number two, am I truly living sound doctrine? Number three, do I truly qualify as a person who is spiritually healthy and growing? And so the first thing we did in establishing, according to this chapter, what constitutes a sound church, a healthy spiritual church, what qualifies a church, is that we see how each particular group The older men, the older women, the younger men, and the younger women are to conduct themselves. And according to how they conduct themselves determines whether each of these groups qualify as being sound. It's not just enough to have a pastor who is sound or pastors who are sound, but you must also be sound as well. And so in chapter 2, we look at the first order of business in a sound body, a body that is healthy spiritually. We saw that it began with the older men, where it should be. We talked about the fact that we need look no further than the older men or the oldest men in this church or in any church. And so you know, if you're an older man, the oldest men of the church, it applies to you directly. So let's just go over a few things and then we'll continue with the older women. We talked about the fact that an older man is qualified as being sound, as being spiritually healthy, and should be an example of being sober-minded, which is in verse number 2 of chapter 2. If an older man is truly applying sound doctrine, then it will be revealed in the fact that he is in control over his own behavior. I'm not going to go into any depth of the list because I want to continue where we left off last time. Then we looked at the fact that he is to be grave, and that means honest or venerated for character, someone who is dignified, respected, and who possesses a spiritual character that is attractive to other people. This should be the behavior of the older men of the church. Then the next qualifier is that he must be temperate, which means sound understanding, discreet, or self-controlled. And oftentimes when I looked at these qualifiers, I noticed that control is always a control of an individual. The control of that life is always in play here, even in most of these qualifiers. Sober, of course, meaning sober-minded. Grave speaks about someone who is dignified. Temperate talks about self-control. The word also is used, this word in particular, is used in 1 Timothy chapter 3 for sober, someone who has a sound mind, someone who follows sound reason, and who is not under the control of passion. Then we saw that the qualifiers for an older man who is truly sound and healthy is someone who is sound in faith, sound in love, and sound in patience. We talked about sound in faith means that the older men of the church should be demonstrating faithful behavior, that they should be trustworthy. They should be completely trustworthy and dependable. And then they are to be sound in their love or charity. And this is God's love demonstrated in actions of affection, compassion, good deeds, and devotion to God. And last, we dealt with the issue of them being sound in patience. And this word patience is the word that is used here for endurance under adverse circumstances. That the older men who have been walking with the Lord for a long period of time should be models of patience. Very plain, very clear, very simple. And I've asked in all of these qualifiers, have you been trustworthy? Have you been loving? Have you been patient? Have you been faithful? Have you been temperate? Have you been grave? Have you been sober-minded? And if not, why not? And if not, then when? Because the church is depending upon you to set forth an example. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. Then in verse 3, we began to look at the women, the older women of the church, and we pretty much asked them the same question. Do I know what sound doctrine is? Am I truly living sound doctrine? Do I truly qualify as a person who is spiritually healthy and growing? We begin to look at the qualifiers for the older women. If you're an older woman of the church or the oldest women of the church, it has to go there, then you should be models by now. If you've been sitting under this ministry, and if you have been applying this much truth, then you should certainly be an example. No doubt about it. Now we're going to define what that example is according to the word. We're not going to define the example according to you. We said that, first of all, the aged women, as Titus spoke what was sound to the men, Paul was instructing Titus to keep speaking that which is sound according to the qualifiers to older women, the things that become their profession, what is right for them to be and to do. And so he says that the aged women likewise, that they be behavior as becometh holiness. In other words, older women, like the older men, are to demonstrate a behavior or manner of life that is sacred. So however old you are, pick the oldest women out and the ones who are next to that older woman. And this is pretty much, no, this is directly, not pretty much, this is directly to you. There's no question about this. There's no way of getting around it. We looked at the basic qualification, which we said was godliness. That's the basic qualification of the older women, and it is for the men as well. Then we dealt specifically with not being false accusers. That's the first qualifier. It's even in the negative, not given over to slander or gossip. And then we looked at the second qualifier for a sound, healthy older woman, not given too much wine. It's not saying be moderate with wine. It's saying don't drink it at all. It speaks of someone who is not a drunkard. And the only way that you can be a drunkard is if you begin. So the only way to eliminate drunkenness is not to get into the behavior that, well, get you drunk. All right? Then you ought to be teachers of good things. What are the good things that older women are to be teaching? To teach what is right. And we are not left to our own devices, or you are not left to your own devices to figure out what the right is that Paul is going to tell you. You are to be a teacher, which of course means that a healthy church will have older women in the role of teaching younger women. And I dare say that younger women, in my experience, need to be taught. They need to be taught by older women, as well as by the pastors or the leaders of churches. There is a necessity for older women teaching younger women. I know younger women think they know everything, but the fact is they don't know much, and they don't know much spiritually. And older women must be an accurate handler of the scriptures. If she's not skilled in the word, she cannot and should not be teaching anyone. Well, before I get into what she should be teaching, as I said last time, there is no gift implied here. There's no gift of teaching. So you can't use that as an excuse. If you dare do so, I'm here to tell you that you need to find another garment, because you won't be able to hide behind that one. So then, the oldest women in this church and in any church, what are you to be teaching younger women? And it is your responsibility. You have a tremendous responsibility to be doing this. And let's see. Verse 4, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children. Isn't it amazing how every single group so far is to be sober? When we get to the young men, it says exhort young men to be what? Sober-minded. Every single group is to be sober-minded. Don't let that escape your thinking. That they may teach the young women. The word teach is another Greek word which means to train, or to train to think and act discreetly and in moderation. The older women will teach the younger women to live a disciplined lifestyle by the example of their own disciplined lifestyle. If you're the oldest woman in this church and you're disciplined, you are obligated to teach these young women who aren't. I'm not trying to be insultive. I'm just going to tell like it is. They're not disciplined things spiritual. It's just that simple. You can't have the 30-something women teaching the 30-something women. I just don't believe that. You can't have the 20-something women teaching the 50-something women. I think that's an insult. It is the exact reversal of God's plan. I just came back from a retreat and we slid down the rope and I learned patience. I just want to scream, say somebody need to sit this baby down and teach her something. Nobody wants to hear how she pooped in her diaper spiritually and learned nothing. How she got on a rope, grabbed some handles and slid down a rope, and that meant she learned something. Yeah, she learned the importance of hanging on to that thing she slid down on, because there was no net at the ground. But how you relate to stuff spiritually is unbelievable. We got the whole thing reversed around. Well, I like doing things the right way. And that is the older women. And that's assuming, of course, that the older women in the church are the ones who are the examples. So to qualify to teach any younger woman the good things Paul wrote about, you have to be a model of that yourself. If you have demonstrated that you have not and cannot submit to sound doctrine in your own life, then what makes you believe that you can teach it to anyone else? Because you can't. So then, what are you to be teaching younger women by the example of your own life? Well, first of all, to be sober. To be sober-minded. Again, having mastery over emotions and passions. And this begs the question about your life. And that is, do you have mastery over your passions? Women are very passionate creatures. They oftentimes do and say a lot of things that are born of passion rather than being sober-minded. I'm going to tell like it is. You can take it or leave it, but you're going to hear it. Do you have mastery over your passions? Is this the example that you have displayed among the younger sisters in the church? Is this the way people think of you when your name runs across the mind or in discussions? We have seen that the older men are to be models of soberness, and that this soberness has nothing to do with drinking at all. Older sisters are to be models of soberness so that you can teach younger women to be the same. So ask yourself, am I this sound in my life? If not, why not? If not, then when? When is it going to happen? What else? You need to be teaching these younger women. You already know who you are, younger women. Both present and both out of view. You can run, but you can't hide. Still in the Word. To love their husbands. That's right. One of the reasons for so many divorces in the church is because young women do not understand their roles and responsibilities as a wife, and more times than less, they do not have an older woman as a role model to see how it's done. That's just the reality. I will declare that God is going to hold many older women accountable for not taking the responsibility of teaching younger women how to love their husband. The word here for love means to be a friend. Wives need to learn how to be a friend to their own husbands. It's more to being a wife than just getting up and cooking and doing the clothes and cleaning up the house. You have a person there that's important to you, so much so that he's one flesh with you, and you have to be not only his lover, but you have to be his friend. Wives need to learn. These young women who just been married and been married a little while, they need to learn how to be a friend to their own husbands. So then, older sisters, are you a friend to your own husband? Are you a friend to your husband? That's the question. Are you your husband's best friend? Are you so friendly to other men that you have forgotten your own husband? Older sisters are to be models of loving their husbands so that they can teach younger women to do the same. A younger woman ought to be able to look at the oldest women in the church, and they're going to be doing it, believe me, after this. If they weren't doing it before, rest assured they're going to be doing it now. They want to be able to look at the oldest women of the church, and they need to be able to ask themselves, could I follow the example of Sister So-and-so? I hear some snickering on the other side of Oh, that's right. I meant what I said. Snicker, snicker. Okay, it's in the word. Got a couple of monitors going, folks, in case you wonder, why is he talking to the wall? Well, on the other side of this wall, someone else was laughing, but she doesn't know we hear her. So it still applies even on the other side of the wall, and where the other monitor is in the nursery, it still applies. You should be able to look at the older sisters of the church and see an example. Older sisters are to be models of loving their husbands so that you can teach younger women to do the same. Ask yourself the question again, am I this sound in my life? If not, why not? And if not, then when? It's important to know for yourselves because the church is relying on you to set forth an example. What else? And I find this so interesting because people just assume that a woman knows these things. I'm telling you, women do not know these things. And they talk about how a woman by nature, her innate nature, just loves her children. She doesn't. They don't love them by nature. They have to be trained how to love their husbands. They have to be trained how to be married. They have to be trained how to love their children. They have to be trained how to take care of a home. They don't know these things. And their pride lets them believe, well, my mama, I don't care what your mama taught you. It's what the Lord teaches you. Your mama ain't saved, is she? No. Well, what you learning from a heathen for? When are you acting and living like one? Tell you the most damnable person in most homes is mama. My mama. Be quiet. What about the Lord? Who is your God? Mama? And she talking about my mama. God talks about your mama. Talk about you too. Both y'all need to be saved. You can't love mama and grandmama and great-great-granny mama more than Christ. You can't put no relationship before Christ and then claim to be a believer. You better read this Bible and understand that God ain't playing. You need to be teaching these young women who don't know anything to love their children. Well, they went to Lama's class. They learned how to breathe. That doesn't mean anything. And they have the baby, and they go through the labor, and they may have the Demerol and all that stuff, and they have to give them birth. They push that little head or big head through whatever, and then they have the baby, and they cut the cord, and they have all this good feeling and whatnot. They have this ugly wrinkled raisin of a child in their arms and everything, and they might breastfeed, and they feel all happy. Is that the end? A lot of women have children not even thinking about the aftermath. There's more to having children than just having children. And then leaving them to Sesame Street to raise. Oh, I'm sorry. You better get on there and raise your child yourself. You need to teach these youngsters to love their children. Older women need to teach younger women, by way of example, the responsibility of motherhood. They just don't know it. Younger women need to learn how to properly love their children. And it isn't by spoiling them and pampering them with a bunch of junk, giving them whatever they want to have. And when they start pouting and crying, you start melting and getting stupid. You can't have the here. You don't think those children learn that? Listen, the children, they're just midgets that can't talk. They know what they're doing. That nature knows how to work it. They can go that to get me. You don't understand the word they're saying, but they say, I'm gonna manipulate your shoulder. You just wait. You just wait. I know how to get you. Here, okay. Who got you there? Here, take it. Here. You have to get some training from older women, learning how to say no and mean it. Not, no, okay, no, okay. Because they get to be 9 and 10 and 13 and 15, and they do the same thing. And then when you say no when they're 18, they might reach back and slap you or cuss you out. You can't just be raising these monsters and expect that one day it's all just going to click. Yeah, it's going to click all right. The word for love is the same word to be a friend. And this is going to be surprising to a lot of women. I don't know why, but usually you see this, what I'm about ready to tell you, you usually see this after the chaos has happened. Then suddenly the mother decides she wants to do what she should have been doing all along. And if she's been doing this all along, the chaos would have never taken place. The emphasis of a loving mother is seen in that she is her child's best friend. It's almost amazing, if it wasn't so tragic, that most women I have seen, they have ignored raising their daughter in particular. And then when the daughter's out doing God knows what, and then all of a sudden after she's bailed out of prison or whatever, or from the halfway house, then the mother gets on some camera or some microphone and says, I think I'm going to learn how to be my child's best friend. Don't you think a little late for that? And so what does the mother do? Why, she buys clothing like her daughter's. She lowers the level of understanding to the daughter. So she goes and becomes like the daughter because she's trying to reach the daughter, trying to reach her daughter. It's too late for that. Why can't you bring the daughter to your level? You know why? Because you know you're a failure. And the minute you try to do it, you're gonna have her jam you up right then and there again. But if you've been her best friend all along, that wouldn't be a problem. I admire young girls who stay close to their mama. I've seen a lot of them, and I go, that's good. That's very good. And I want to interject a point here in the study. You may be tempted to say, well, I do love my child or my children, and that is clearly evident for all to see. Now, I may agree with you, and I may not. But if it is true according to you, then I must ask you the following. First, do you have the right to hide behind this one qualifier in your life to the elimination of the others? How about, do you have selected qualifiers that if you are willing to do and you're willing to leave the others out? Well, I want to definitely question your claim to love your children. I'll tell you why. It is highly doubtful that you could love your children to the degree that they need to be loved if, for example, you do not love your husband, or that you are not a model of holiness or sober-mindedness.
Thank you for listening to the What Saith the Scriptures radio program on Word Central Radio. You can write me at Harley Howard Radio @gmail.com. That's Harley Howard Radio @gmail.com. And until the next time, may God bless you and keep you is my prayer.